Friday, and I'm grateful I had another chance to navigate through other things. And yeah, I won't understand how this matrix of aggression will go. It gives me a different perspective. How we normally understand what aggression means, and it is obvious, but most of the time is not. It is in this subtle micro even aggressions, and unless you develop the lens to understand the signaling, the environment, the and identify your own biases as well, and identify which perspective are you adopting in the situation, or are you making overgeneralization. No one size fits all, and nothing is like everything. It is not like an assembly factor making like a trillion of the same products, copies, and identical. They are identical. With aggression as one of the, I call it the baseline that can define your understanding about the world, how you relate to others, how you connect, how you communicate, and how your body language, your facial expression, tone of voice is being reflected on that, and how it is impacted by the environment, and how the environment impacted with lived experience, with past history of all good, bad, and ugly, all of that, how it shaped a pattern of understanding of the interaction. At the same time, what patterns or what cluster of factors or elements are presented in front of you that you come to a conclusion. Our brain, with the heuristic memory, just the relevant, the familiar, or it is like under high pressure and stress, the person is acting from hyperactive amygdala or the limbic response. So all of that is presenting unto you. And it happened when we mostly say conflict, but it is contradiction in the signaling and the patterns that the person, or the rehearsal of the scenario that the person expects. It's a breakdown of expectation. So it is the presence of the contradiction of what is expected. And that is how you see the person completely. They are planning a specific scenario in their head, and there's a different scenario occurring, and that shift the paradigm, how they are acting, response, or reacting. But it shows well in the vibration of the body, and some call it the energy in the place shifts. And I stated before, for stress and aggression, the energy or the electromagnetic field, it is spread like around a mile. So imagine a person that you are walking into the environment. You are not only the person is walking, there are many around you, and each one is carrying a specific vibration, specific thread of thoughts, experiences, histories. it can be personal, medical, professional, whatever it is, but it shaped the cellular mechanism, how they are walking, how they carry themselves, how they are connecting, how they interact, and everything. And you see already the person that is highly reactive um, once a scenario is presented with contradiction or a surprise or not expected, the body language manifests. You see the true person in front of you. You are not seeing this calm, collective, and smiling. But once there is a shift in the scenarios presented, the body language spring, and you see a complete different. So you understand exactly when the control of the environment, or the control of the how things go, or the expectation. I'm saying 1, 2, 3, but one happened, but two. Sorry, 4 or 5 came before two. So that flipped the script. So many are acting from rehearsed scripts. So they are continually like performing, sometimes without rethinking it. But I stated that we have the immune response, we have the stress response, we have the gut brain axis, we have the DNA methylation. All this is acting from the perceptual experience. I call it the perceptual experience because it is perceived reality, perceived threat, and perceived stress. It can be no connection with you, but what you are presenting, what are you allow the person to recall in their mind, that is what the operational taking place right now. And I stated that I'm going to bring the integumentary or the largest system in your body, and is considered one of the brains, because we say you have the brain, you have your gut is another brain, the spleen is another brain, the fascia. You have many brains, and this brains, it carries mitochondria, immune cells, so it says nerve cells. So it has all things that already as you are, yeah, it's another brain in your body. So you don't have one brain, but every organ or every system of these has its own unique function. However, with the input that I stated before, like the IBM mega computer or the quantum computer, you have multiple operating systems, you have different processing, information processing, and this impact the cellular mechanisms in health and disease. So we don't want to ignore any. And every time I discover another piece, it's like it's not, the light is not shedding on it. Normally we say the brain, the gut, the liver, the kidney, the pancreas, the extremities, upper extremities and lower extremities. All other the regular systems, so circulatory system, respiratory system. So we have the grand knowing and not understanding, because every system of these has a very unique mechanisms on the cellular and molecular function. So every time it's showing me another piece or part within the biosystems. People don't know, because you are fearfully and wonderfully made. We are so complex that it is not only the heart, it is not only the lungs. These are like the final phase of the cell formation, differentiation, division, and proliferation, all of that. So I'm bringing another brain. It's not only your brain, and how it sends the signals and how it perceives the signals and how it changes the electrophychemistry within you in aggression and related to aggression in personality, personality traits and cluster personalities. And that is how we see there is another brain at work. That is your, and that is the skin. And we all remember the famous the famous saying, the power of touch, because it's what it presents. And most of the trauma survivors and for example victims of the domestic violence, when you don't see them, they are comfortable with the proximity of the touch, because this has imprinted, ingrained unwanted experience or lived experience. So they form it through the power of touch, but it is not a healthy one. It's not safe one. It's not a trusted one. They shape the whole world around us, and that tunnel vision just determined how they perceive the world around them. And I stated before, based on the accumulative experiences, good, bad, and ugly, eh, the character or the behavior is being reflected within the group dynamic. If there is no awareness, is no training how trauma is formed on the cell memory, we are missing out. We are missing out. Why? Because we are treating symptoms. We are ignoring to send the right signals to the confused cell. So the person, whoever exposed to aggression, physical, emotional, psychological, mental, and we see now for decades the over majority living without trace. The psychological, mental, and emotional abuse, it goes without trace. And sometimes it doesn't have its biomarkers, but it presents a shift. But we say there are something happening on the gene expression, the DNA methylation, the oxidative stress. So I am treating the change, but this can happen over if the person is like experience poverty, experienced tough early childhood, if they are experienced for example, working under pressure. So that is an over time, it presented this phenomena of chronic inflammation, chronic pain, and the the allostatic load or the pathology, the disease. But we don't ignore what the mechanisms that led to that. It takes decades. And I stated that not everyone is being brought into the world with regulated central nervous system, because there is intergenerational trauma, there is the accumulated stress over generations, and if the mother is not fully prepared for having a baby, all the stressors, all the dysfunction of the cellular mechanism, it pass into the fetus through the placenta, and then they come already compromised with gene expression. So that is like I say, compromise the central nervous system. And based on that, what other challenges they are facing through the life, what is stress, what pressure, what changes in their life occurred, it impacted DNA methylation, it impacted the oxidative stress, it impacted their perceptual experiences, how they perceive and how they act, and their stress response, and their tolerance, how their body adapt, because we have the survival brain, how their body adapt. And sometimes if this cellular or molecular mechanisms ignored, not being addressed by changing environment, by changing lifestyle, by changing the interpersonal relationships. So if it is not healthy and communication interaction, that is increasing the dysfunction of the cellular mechanisms, and we see it in cardiovascular, in diabetes and hypertension. That is the first phase. Then it escalates into cardiovascular, and then cancer, and then strokes, and then sometimes, many times, we see that right now is central nervous system disorders, or is being started to show up in people we see like highly sensitive. They did well in their profession, they did well in their careers, however they ignored this subtle mechanisms in their cell, based on the trajectory of aggression over time. It is reactive, proactive, or it is covert or overt. So all this, sometimes the tolerance to serve, or the tolerance to exist, or to keep harmony, sometimes it changes the person, the whole person, 5 to 10 years. Say, and then you have a condition, you have to live with it through your life. This matrix is I am designing it because we would like to speak about what aggression mean. It is not what you are used to. We see the rights, yes, they can lead to this, but what happened on the molecular mechanism, it is way far different, and it is unseen and unpredicted, and we are not analyzing everybody around us based on specific biomarkers, based on specific changes in the communication, or the interaction, or interpersonal relationships, and trauma bleeding. We don't react to that. We normally blame, shame, guilt, and trap people in self-delusionally or self-deception that is something wrong with them. Not the causation, but the correlation of that something. They are the causation. Now with the labeling, it was guilt, shame, fear, and sometimes oppression, and sometimes manipulation, gaslighting. It's all of this. This is the psychological, mental, emotional processes. So not every community or every environment is being trained how to identify the word aggression on the wide spectrum of covert and overt aggression, and how it presents itself only with micro behaviors among people. Okay, it was disconnected, so I'm back. So let's see. Hopefully, it will go well this time. Okay. So yes, so I'm stating that aggression is not all everything that you have been learned over and over. It is physical, and I stated before that if it is physical, the aggressor will redirect the attention to them, and of course that is the social norm is unacceptable. So humans are complex and have intelligence. So they have social intelligence. So they have cognitive intelligence. So they have emotional intelligence, and I say culture intelligence. So lots and the IQ, if they are genius in math and science. That is what is common. Is they are genius in math and science. However, humans started to, because we have the word of a camouflage or hide behind the mask, hide behind the mask. To look legitimate, to look like appealing to the target, and with science and technology as well, with all the advancement in the world and all the means and the possibilities in the world, it, camouflaging became so easy, and mostly they understand that even the aggressor understand their target from the first impression that the target are presenting. And is that sometimes is scary. However, few are building awareness how to understand the red flags, who to who to invite into their mind, because once they are invited into their mind, then the heart, then the life, then that, and maybe it is too late. So we see multiple cases, especially I said in females. um, their programming start with, we call it the grooming stage, and then from the grooming getting control, and then getting the control, the mask falls off, and the person ingrained in their mind, they are powerless, helpless, they have no control, and they cannot make a decision on their own, they cannot depend or trust their own decision or a judgment. So breaking the confidence, the self-esteem, planting the self-doubt and low self-confidence and low self-esteem, that what shakes the ground of the target, and started to look for validation in every situation, every word, everything they do. So they are ripped of their identity already, and they are waiting for the aggressor to tell them or validate or approve who they are. And of course, they have this the the kindness, then the brutality phase shifting at a sudden. So from this generous, kind to well admired, charismatic, into this this individual that always saying to the target, you are less than, you don't measure, you cannot do it, you cannot do it. So this is perceiving the neurological language, and it is not only into the perceptual experience, visual, auditory, but it is sensation as well of the skin, or on your largest organ in your body, that is the skin. And the skin is so intelligent that it shows signs of stress. It shows signs of abnormal cellular mechanisms. We normally see this brown, that is the cell already self-death, and this free radicals activations and things that this is a result of oxidative stress. You see this whole like white hair, like really white hair. That is free radicals and oxidative stress. But it's nobody is not yes, it is the eradication of the pigmentation of the hair, but it has a cellular mechanism. It has a cellular mechanism why the hair is losing its pigments. It gives the skin the color, it gives the hair the colors, things like that. So everything has its own indicator that even aggression, it can be a move, it can be a word, it can be a comment, it can be a text, it can be a video that posting it toward the social media of those who are vulnerable or available for this hacking. It can be how they allow others to perceive you. So the influencing how the environment and how others perceive you. And that is another scenario of control and grasping. But over and over, your body, your skin, as a perception of signaling of the interaction, it feels off. Here we say it is not only transmitted on the external environment, it is internally in the neuroperception and the electrobiochemicals that changes within the central nervous system. So I'd like to present today the part 13. So I upload myself for that. So I am bringing another piece for aggression today. That is aggression, integumentary system, and perception. So how this works, how they are collaborate together in shaping the lived experience or your understanding of the environment, and over time through the across lifespan or the ages and stages, how this influence your perception of the world around you, of the other, of you versus them, I versus you, them versus others, or something like that. So we say like this is the identity shift that can shape the internal and external conflict, and conflict present itself when the heuristic or the script, so that that the person or the individual already know that is what it is, to something leads to discomfort or disease. Once the perceptual experience reach this point of discomfort and disease, understand there is a big shift of shaping the world, or shaping how the person perceive the world, and shaping how they are going to react, act, or response, or going to be proactive. That is the strategic, calculative, harmful behaviors. So let us see this, how these three integrate together in the world of aggression, or the word aggression, and how aggression is no longer for me is the obvious thing. I have to elicit it. I have I have to be trained over time and over and over. If the behavior is presented itself on a continuum of events, that is, as I say, it is an intentional behavior. It is not accident, or it is one event and done. It is intentional. And when it is intentional, it comes with a motive, it comes with agenda, it comes with an outcome expected to be happen within a time frame or within the life of others. So that is how we see, for the children and adolescents. Don't underestimate when they comment something, when they don't feel comfortable in a place or around somebody. Don't ignore that and walk them through it. Don't ignore their body sudden changes from this angel innocent person into this, like they are like 16 but they are acting and behaving like 25 years old. So something shifted, something abnormal shifted. Are they trying to escape, or are they trying to feel comfort in a different skin or a different body they are imagining or put on them, especially female? So once they reach puberty or earlier than this, the first thing is obvious, is their body, is their body. How can they can feel safe around others, and how can they feel safe within their own body? I think that is the first lesson, or the first primary thing every female from early age, they have to be educated what is healthy, what is not healthy, and how it looks like if it is not being presented in scenarios in exactly what is healthy and what and the opposite. What if they are trained for what is healthy, whatever opposite than this, their skin is going to pick up that is off, that is not okay. And once their body shifts from this, the aggressor, not to feel like being seen, they are going to shift the perception of the world around them, how the target is perceived. For example, they are not okay, they are like unstable, or they are something, or going through that. But they don't understand why the individual themselves, how their body shaped this experience into the unsafety and this reactive response when they come close, or there is sort of unsafety in the presence, or if they are in a specific environment or in the presence of a specific sometimes it is not the person, it is what memory that person brought to them in the time, because recalling the event is reliving the event. The trauma is the brain doesn't distinguish it happened before, it happens now, in the now, in the now. So the body relive and relive and relive the same lived experience, unless something bring it to the awareness and the realization that is gone, that is no more happening. So the separation between that, what actually is happening and what is perceived, has been bridged. How we can bridge this gap. So let us see here. There is a lot, especially when you are in a culture, some cultures that invite high proximity, and some cultures it is no proximity and there is distance. So this conflicting scenarios as well, and what what systems are you operating from? It can present itself an inner conflict, and due to like people pleasing, culture norm, I fake it till you make it, things that already doesn't serve the healthy person. It serves the person who would like to exploit or take advantage of this individual. So I'm bringing you today as well aggression and integration of the integumentary system and perception. So integrating these three is, I hope I can present it well, or in a way that you understand that we are dealing with behavior, emotions, sensory perception, how to recognize the pattern of aggression at this time, emotional modulation, sensory input not only from the environment out, and what is perceived, what is sensed, what is felt, what is experienced, and at the same time recalling the past patterns or past experiences. How all this being interpreted by the brain, and it's not presenting a cognitive load, and cognitive load leads to burnout, exhaustion, and it changes in the cellular mechanisms as well, and responded to the environment. So if we understand that aggression, of course, I said it before, aggression is a complex behavior influenced by neurobiological, hormonal, and environmental factors. So the triad. So the amygdala, thalamus, and prefrontal cortex are key areas involved in the modulation and expression of aggressive behavior. We have some studies, research indicates that heightened amygdala activation is often associated with reactive aggression. That is clear to 2016. So aggression is a multifaceted behavior characterized by actions intended to cause harm or assert dominance over others. Its function is control, is dominance, is making the things to be done as it is expected, and forcing a choice or forcing a scenario on who is being perceived is less capable. So, from a behavioral neurosciences perspective, aggression is understood as a result of intricate interaction between neurological structure, neurochemical pathways, hormonal influences, and the environmental triggers. This integrative view helps us explain both the reactive, impulsive, and the proactive planned forms of aggression, which are modulated by distinct neural circuits. The brain regions implicated in aggression include amygdala, hypothalamus, and prefrontal cortex. The amygdala plays a central role in emotional processing, especially in fear and threat detection. And its hyperactivity has been repeatedly associated with reactive aggression. And I stated before, when comes to reactive aggression, the target is going to be seen the offender, so the blame and the precautions, and he is going to present a threat to others because they are perceived as hostile, unpredictable, or it can cause stress among a group, so they are becoming offenders, not a victim. So, a form of aggression provoked by perceived threats or frustration. Lesion studies and neuroimaging have shown the damage or dysfunction in the amygdala can either reduce fear based inhibition or increase aggressive impulses depending on the region affected, and both can present a threat. Either this is hypoactivation of the amygdala, that means that if the real threat happens, they are not going to be able to detect it or show signs of interaction with the environment, so that can shape a danger for the victim. However, from the aggressor, this less active, that is what function they have more other neurocircuitry activation that is focused on action and the target and outcomes, but to harm, not to do good, or increase aggressive impulses depending on the region affected. The hypothalamus, particularly the medial hypothalamus, contribute to autonomic arousal and aggression through its connection with the preaqueductal gray, or BEG, and the brain stem, forming part of the aggression pathway that mediates fight or flight responses. In experimental animal models, electrical stimulation of the hypothalamus can elicit attack behavior, supporting its role in initiating aggression. So it's aggression here as a defense mechanism. That is the reptilian brain. In contrast, the prefrontal cortex, especially the prefrontal and dorsal regions, dorsolateral regions, is involved in executive control or inhibitory processing. So think before you act. So when the prefrontal cortex, especially with higher cortisol and adrenaline, that is blocked, this means it gives it to the bottom up, the bottom or the bottom regulation of the limbic system, or activation of the limbic system. This region acts as a regulatory brake or emotional and impulse behavior by modulating limbic system activity. Dysfunctions in the prefrontal cortex are associated with poor impulse control and disinhibit aggression. At the same time, we see the poor impulse control highly with adolescents, with the changes in the hormonal, the puberty stage. So their body is going through a whole another turmoil, so they are dealing with what is ever happening and their perceived reality, and what is already biological changes happening within their body. So this can bring like a counteract with escalating more impulsive poor impulsive control. So aggression is also modulated by neurotransmitters, particularly serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. Low serotonic activity, especially in the prefrontal cortex, has been correlated with increased aggression and impulsivity. Dopamine, which is linked to reward and motivation, may enhance aggressive behavior when it becomes reinforcing, as seen in dominance-related aggression. Additionally, testosterone, a steroid hormone, has been shown to influence aggressive behavior by increasing amygdala activity to social threats and reducing prefrontal regulatory control. And normally in male, they are connecting this a higher activation of violence and aggression during the summertime, due to that is one of the hypothesis that the testosterone affect that on and the heat and the temperature. And we see this when we like modulate the body, we lower the temperature of the room, we calm, we care about what is around them, does not stimulate or increase their impulse control or poor impulse control. Although aggression has a biological underpinning, it also shaped by early life experiences, trauma, social learning, that is by modeling and shaping, and the culture context. A culture that perceive aggression as a defense mechanism for rights and strengths and dominance and influence, that children will seek that as well when they grow up, or through their development, that aggression is allowed, and that is a social and cultural norm. Chronic exposure to violence and neglect or abuse during developmental periods can sensitize the amygdala and impair prefrontal development, creating a neurobiological predisposition for heightened aggression in later life. Aggression arises from dynamic interactions between brain structure, neurotransmitter systems, hormonal levels, and environmental context. The amygdala, hypothalamus, and the prefrontal cortex work in a delicate balance to regulate aggression impulses. Disruption in this system, whether due to genetics, neurodevelopmental anomalies, or trauma, can lead to regulated aggression. Understanding these mechanisms within the framework of behavioral neuroscience provides valuable insights into both normal and pathological aggression. So, damage to the prefrontal cortex can impair regulatory control over aggression, leading to more impulsive acts of violence. Hormonal fluctuation, particularly elevated testosterone, are associated with increased aggressive reactivity. Teratogenic dysfunction has been long implicated in the neurobiology of impulsive aggression. Aggression is not singular or purely psychological or physiological phenomena. It emerges from complex interaction between neural systems, hormonal dynamics, and neurotransmitters pathways. Behavioral neuroscience seeks to understand how structural brain damage, hormonal fluctuation, and neurochemical imbalances can predispose individuals to impulsive or instrumental aggression. Damage to the prefrontal cortex and impaired regulation. The prefrontal cortex, especially the orbitofrontal cortex and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, plays a pivotal role in executive function, impulse control, decision making, and social cognition. Damage or dysfunction in this area reduces the brain's ability to modulate emotional responses and suppress inappropriate behavior impulse, including aggressive outbursts. Neuroimaging and lesion studies reveal the individual with damage of the prefrontal cortex often exhibited increased emotional liability, reduced empathy, and a tendency toward reactive aggression, as their ability to evaluate consequences and inhibit impulse responses is diminished. This has been observed in individuals with traumatic brain injuries, frontal lobe tumor, and neurodegenerative conditions. For example, a person with the ventromedial prefrontal cortex damage may respond to minor provocation with disproportionate anger, lacking the inhibitory control normally provided by this region. This is supported by clinical cases in which frontal lobe damage led to sudden personality changes, increase the irritability and violent behavior. So if we understand what rupture occur, this is what dysfunctional and damage occurred on the electropyochemical level and the neuroimaging and tissue damage. That what when we understand that has an impact on the behavior and the impulsivity control or the perception of reactivity or pressure and stress. It changes in the environment overall, but we have to integrate that what rupture had happened. Testosterone or steroid hormone, primarily associated with male development and reproductive behavior, has been extensively studied in relation to aggression. Although not a direct cause of aggression, elevated testosterone levels are linked to increased dominance behavior, heightened threat sensitivity, and reactivity to provocation, especially in competitive or socially evaluative situations. Neuroendocrine research shows that testosterone influences aggression by enhancing amygdala activity, which process threats, and reducing connectivity with the frontal cortex, which normally dampen emotional response. This disinhibitory effect may bias individuals toward interpreting ambiguous stimuli as threatening because the brain doesn't like ambiguity. But if you are clear, if you are understandable, you are going to be predictable, that is going to be more putting the individual on at high risk of being exploited or abused or taken advantage of, thereby increasing the likelihood of aggressive behavior. Furthermore, the challenge hypothesis posits that testosterone levels rise in response to social challenges or a status threat, particularly among males, promoting aggressive strategies to defend or assert dominance control. So serotonin or 5-HT is a neurotransmitter widely implicated in mood regulation, behavioral inhibition, and impulse control. Deficiencies in serotogenic function, especially in the prefrontal cortex, anterior cingulate cortex, have been strongly linked to impulsive, unprovoked, or emotionally dysregulated aggression. Low serotonin levels can reduce the brain capacity to regulate emotion arousal, leading to a failure to inhibit aggressive urges. Research has shown that individuals with antisocial personality disorders, borderline personality disorder, explosive disorder often exhibit reduced serotonic activity. Additionally, pharmacological studies demonstrate that selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors or SSRIs, which increase synaptic serotonin, can reduce aggression in both humans and animals, further confirming serotonin inhibitory role. So we have here dysfunction in 5-HT or serotogenic dysfunction is a neurotransmitter involved in regulating a wide range of psychological or physiological function, including mood, sleep, appetite, and impulse control. And these are physiologicals are so important of the process of repair, so or the cellular repair. So in sleep and especially sleep, so cellular repair during the sleep is so important. Mood affect sleep and appetite and impulse control, so they are all interrelated. Among its most critical roles is the modulation of aggression, particularly impulsive or reactive aggression, a type of aggression that is unplanned, emotionally charged, and often occurs in response to provocation or frustration. Serotogenic neurons originate primarily in the Raphe nuclei of the brainstem and project widely to cortical and subcortical regions involved in emotional and behavioral regulation, including the prefrontal cortex, amygdala, anterior cingulate cortex, and hypothalamus. These regions form part of the limbic system and executive control network, both of which are crucial for evaluating threats, regulating emotions, and suppressing aggressive impulses. When serotonic transmission is reduced or dysregulated, or inhibitory control over limbic structure, particularly the amygdala, weakens. This can lead to exaggerated emotional response. Poor impulse regulation and increased propensity for impulsive aggression, a hallmark of various psychiatric and personality disorder. In other words, serotonin acts as a brake or on emotional reactivity. When serotonin levels are low or its receptors are dysfunctional, the brain is less able to regulate negative affect. And when I stated negative affect are the hardest to tune in on their in their role in the dysfunction of electropychemistry. So, especially, I'm saying the positive is healthy for everybody, but we would like to see the effect or the impact of anger, fear, shame, guilt, frustration, rejection, all these hate. Prejudice, discrimination, all of this. Saying the word by itself, it brings the body into a physiological response, and that is changing every single second in your body. So you have to understand what are you inviting, what are you paying attention to. So pay attention. So we see that when serotonin levels are low or its receptors are dysfunction, the brain is less able to regulate negative effects, increasing the risk of sudden aggression outburst. So we have to understand that we would like to understand the body mechanism of a metabolize, because it's a metabolism. Everything in your life, thoughts, perceptions, ideas, feelings, emotions, that is all metabolism. That is all changing your electropychemistry. And when we would like to understand the cellular metabolism, we don't only say the diet and exercise and that. No, I would like to understand what overall input has been inside and being metabolized, including sleep, stress, trauma, thoughts, ideas, feelings, emotions, and the psychological state, because this is all integrated into the metabolic state. It can affect the gene. It has its impact on the epigenetic or the gene expression with the genetic predisposition, specifically the specific diseases are manifesting in the biosystems, and it manifests now from digestive tract and from the metabolic ratios, and it is impacting your cellular and your central nervous system. Basically, imagine that you are born with not fully regulated central nervous system. Imagine all the accumulated input over time, what it can do to the central nervous system, from oxidative stress, from DNA methylation, from I see the gene expression, the mutation, the gene silencing. All this is changing you as a person, and how you connect, how you react, and how you perceive the world around you. So, the serotonin deficiency hypothesis of aggression, originally proposed in 1980s, and we see and supported by decades of research, points to the low central serotonin level are strongly associated with increased aggression, particularly of the impulsive type. This has been demonstrated through the cerebrospinal fluid, and studies show how levels of 5-HIAA serotonin metabolite in aggressive behavior individual. So it's all is measured on a metabolic rate or metabolic the cellular metabolic mechanisms. All has to be measured through that. Pharmacological evidence, reduction in aggression following the administration of selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors or SSRIs, which, however, the duration, how long it changes as well, the inhibition and exhibition of the serotonin receptors. So we have, this is another mechanism. So when what works does not work anymore, what we should do, which increases extracellular serotonin. Animal studies, rodents with impaired serotonin synthesis or receptor function display increased aggression, especially under stress. Further redefined this model by emphasizing the serotonin interact with other neurochemical systems, particularly dopamine, the motivation neurotransmitter. So in modulating behavioral responses to provocation. For example, while serotonin regulates inhibition and behavioral control, dopamine influences reward sensitivity and motivational silence. Dysregulated serotonin dopamine balance may heighten both the impulse to act and the failure to inhibit the act, increasing aggression. We see this over time. Majority adolescents, young adult, and elderly stages. Low serotonin functioning is often observed in individuals with antisocial personality disorder, intermittent explosive disorder, borderline personality disorder, and conduct disorder, all of which include elements of dysregulated or impulsive aggression. Moreover, serotonin targeting medication or like SSRIs, like fluoxetine, are used off-label to reduce aggressive symptoms, especially in patients with mood disorders or post-traumatic stress disorder. Neuroimaging studies have shown that individuals with serotonergic dysfunction exhibit reduced prefrontal cortex activity and the increased amygdala activation in response to emotionally proactive stimuli. This imbalance mirrors the behavioral pattern of impulsive aggression, overactive emotional responses coupled with underactive self-regulation. For example, a person with low serotonic activity may interpret a neutral facial expression as a hostile and respond with disproportionate anger or aggression. That is why we see it. If you understand your biases, your perceptual state, and you try to give it a time not to react, you may adopt this different behavior. But however, when this impulsivity is persistent, there is lack of control. That is why we see the aggression on its covert and overt state. While serotonic dysfunction has a biological basis, it can also be shaped by early adversity, chronic stress, substance use, genetic vulnerabilities, like polymorphisms in the 5-HTTLPR gene. These factors can alter serotonin signaling pathways, sensitizing the individual to emotionally charged situation and reducing inhibitory control. Imagine that there is no, the person themselves, they are not aware of their cellular mechanisms, and they are taking everything from the external environment or what has been taught or has been programmed through the social and cultural norm. So the in-group and outer group. Imagine the person doesn't understand that the harm is being done either with reactive and proactive aggression. Imagine they are not aware of the harm has been done? Are we stopping the falling into more adversity and into harmful consequences of unacknowledged, undereducated phenomena of aggression? Are we aware of that? Are we aware of that? So you cannot address what you cannot see, or you cannot measure what you cannot document, or you cannot you're already aware of. So that is considered the lack of evidence. If I don't have the evidence, if I don't have the reliable, trusted resources, so how come I understand that this is actually happening? Serotonergic dysfunction plays a critical role in the neurobiology of impulsive aggression by impairing the brain's capacity to regulate affective and behavioral responses. The deficient inhibitory influence of serotonin on the limbic and the prefrontal regions contributes to a lowered threshold for aggressive behavior, particularly in emotionally proactive contexts. As noted, the interaction between serotonin and other neuromodulatory systems further complicates this picture, highlighting the need for integrative approaches in both research and treatment. So, understanding everything from a metabolic, what is taking place on the cellular level, is going to make sense more uh, than I'm asking the person to stop what they do, because they are not aware of the damage or the harm or what actually taking place inside this box that's called the body. So and we say that the black box of the airplane. So they spend the whole time to decipher the messages to understand why, for example, the crash or anything happened in between. So you are highly sophisticated. You are built within systems, and when we narrow it into the cellular mechanism from metabolic perspective, we can understand exactly what harm, and we can educate the public on that. At the same time, so how do they identify red flags? What your skin is telling you. So there are some studies that Suayal, like 2008, conducted a comprehensive literature review on theoretical synthesis to explain the neurobiological mechanism underlying impulsive aggression, with particular attention to the interactions between serotonin 5-HT and dopamine DA systems. The paper aimed not only to explain the impulsive aggression itself, but also to account for its frequent co-occurrence with other psychopathologic, that like anti-personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, substance use disorders, and ADHD. So there are some studies. Nothing happened solo. It is cluster. It represent even in autoimmune diseases. It present a cluster. It doesn't present one thing. So the biological systems have been hijacked and based on the genetic predisposition. So that is why we say the alteration of the function and structure of the brain and the central nervous system, that redirecting the function of the biological system and the quality of life, the morbidity and mortality, at the same the lifespan. So we're not talking about health span, we're talking about lifespan. So that is years taken out of the life of the individual, particularly those who are subject to vulnerable. So, in general, serotonin hypoactivity acts as a regulatory system that inhibit aggressive and impulsive behavior. Low serotonic activity in prefrontal regions result in disinhibition, allowing continually charged impulses like anger, frustration. You see this anguish to be acted upon without sufficient control. This dysfunction is associated with reactive, hostile, unplanned forms of aggression, and the individual is perceived as an offender, aggressor, aggressive, threatening, unsafe, unstable, all of that. So, regardless, we see the stages of other. There are some interactions with their medical history as well, so that can contribute and or can escalate the dysfunction of the serotonic pathways. So dopamine hyperactivity or dysregulation. Dopamine is involved in reward processing, motivation, and approach behavior. A dysregulated dopamine transmission can lead to heightened reward sensitivity or reduce the sensitivity to punishment, increasing the likelihood of risk taking, thrill seeking, and goal driven instrumental aggression. And that is what we see it in the dark tetrad, or the what we say the psychopath, the narcissism, the Machiavellian and sadistic behaviors. So these are, you're gonna see that the dopamine hyperactivity or dysregulation. In some individuals, aggressive acts themselves may become reinforcing due to dopaminergic reward circuitry. So they are dopamine driven, so they get this thrill or excitement rushing into their systems. 5-HT and DA system interaction. The authors emphasize the imbalance between the interaction between these systems rather than dysfunction in either alone. So, our key to understanding impulsive aggression: when serotonin's inhibitory control is diminished and dopamine approach motivation is heightened, the result is poor regulation of behavior under provocation. We call it they got under the person's skin, they trigger, they provoke, they poke. Especially as I stated, that the aggressor is studying their victim, their pattern, and understand exactly how to cause this harm. So it is repetitive, it is continuous, and when it becomes addicted, it shapes the trauma bonding, leading to higher likelihood of violent outbursts. So, in some representations of the disorders, I stated the the antisocial personality disorder characterized by persistent disregard for others and aggressive conduct. Borderline personality disorder, marked by emotional dysregulation and impulsive, sometimes violent behavior. Substance use disorder, where drugs may further impair serotonic function and amplify dopaminergic reward seeking. That's the thrill that driving or they are seeking. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which includes impulsivity as a core feature and shows evidence of dysregulated dopamine system. So the shared neurochemical dysfunction across these disorders can help explain their high comorbidity rates and guide more effective treatment strategies. So normally, so treatment that enhances serotonic dysfunction, like SSRIs, maybe reduce the aggression and impulsivity in certain population. What it depends on the binding of the medication and the receptors. So, are they there is inhibition or exhibition of the receptors? So, inhibition, that is decrease in the receptors. Exhibition is or excitation, that is the increase in the receptors. So is there an excitation or inhibition within the receptor? So that is depending as well. There are multimodal interventions targeting neurotransmitters, so like the CBT with pharmacological interventions. That is as well. There are another alternative pathways for increasing the serotonin reuptake as well. It can through somatic experiences. Let us see. Genetic predisposition or early trauma and environmental stressors are as well having a role in shaping the neurochemical pathways in the aggressive behaviors. So, aggression, particularly of the impulsive or reactive subtype, is complex behavior phenomena arising from the interplay of the neurocircuits, neurotransmitter systems, and environmental influences. So that is the genotype, phenotype at the end, what is displayed. While structural abnormality in the prefrontal cortex or amygdala or limbic system have been widely documented in individuals displaying aggressive tendencies, recent models emphasize the crucial role of neurochemical interaction, particularly between the serotogenic and the dopaminergic systems. There is an interaction between serotonin and dopamine as the key mechanisms in manifestation of impulsive aggression. Low serotogenic activity, especially with within the prefrontal cortex, results in diminished capacity for behavioral inhibition. This lack of regulatory control predisposed individuals to emotionally driven, unplanned acts of aggression in response to perceived provocation or frustration. The dopaminergic system is heavily implicated in reward sensitivity and approach motivation, can exacerbate aggression when dysregulated. Individuals with hyper-responsive dopaminergic pathways may experience heightened reactivity to environmental cues and an increased tendency to pursue dominance or control through aggression means. Aggression may not only be disinhibited by low serotonin, but also reinforced or motivated by dopamine-related reward mechanisms. Some advances in understanding aggression in illustrating that the interaction, not just the independent dysfunction of these systems, plays a central role in impulsive violence. This interaction helps explain why pharmacological interventions that solely target one neurotransmitter system, that like SSRIs for serotonin, may be only partially effective in some population. Where work provides a neurobiological basis for the frequent co-occurrences of impulsive aggression with other disorders such as antisocial personality disorders, borderline personality disorders, and substance use disorders, all of which involve overlapping dysfunctions in serotogenic and dopaminergic regulation. It is important to understand the biological vulnerabilities, to understand the mechanisms of the inhibition and disinhibition, or the excitation of the neurotransmitters and the changes into the metabolic rates. How this all work together to present biological substrates of behavioral expressions of impulsive aggression. So, how this all collaborate and build bridges into building aggression literature, offering this lens from biological substrates, behavior expression, and the change in the electrobiochemistry for impulsive aggression. How this can in physiological manifestation, in biomedical model, and psychiatric conditions. So the I came to the largest system in your body, that is the skin, and is essential for the tactile perception. We see when you see it all, like the child, when they are comforting, they hold a bear, or they have favorite blankets or something like this, because they are more into the touch, and that gives a lot. At a moment there was a separation. uh, uh, I didn't know I mentioned before the attachment theory and the shaping of bonding and the shaping of bonding. And that is between the it's a highly famous scene after the delivery of the baby. They put it in the chest of the mother, so it's only, skin to skin, skin to skin, and that what sets up the central nervous system. So interesting that this bonding, if it is not shaped for the first hours of the delivery of the baby, or there's something or unresolved trauma within the mother, there is separation. There is this, and we see it in the let's see, the postpartum depression. Yes, yes. I'm gonna the postpartum depression, and it can indicate a lot of things. Um, it can get into, is the pregnancy from the first place was wanted? Are there history of unresolved trauma, and especially CPTSD or complex PTSD, that is interrelational trauma or relational trauma, and mostly emotional trauma, emotional, psychological, mental, and it can be physiological as well, or physical. So this is an important moment for every female. If you would like a baby, and I say it all the time, uh, we are raised on a culture women are not expressing their needs and wants, and who they want to be. They're still have these perceptual experiences that they are helpless, powerless, they can't. If they have this control dominance system or operational within their life, and that the person is feeding on, but the target doesn't know that they are the food for specific tapestry of electrobiochemistry and brain function and structure. They don't know that. We If we are having a culture, we understand which systems are you operating from early age. We are gonna keep the dignity and integrity of every human, and we may decrease what is shame, guilt, fear, judgment is being put onto specifically females, of like if something the mistakes are done is life sentence for them, and they are being tortured over and over and over with it. So how can we prevent that we put the healthy lens into the perspective of every female from early age on the power of bonding and attachment? Because whatever is your style of bonding and attachment, if it is based trauma based, is gonna be dysfunctional, chaotic, life taking, humiliating, and dehumanizing the individual that has been created in the image of God, and you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And the individual becomes like in the ocean, they are the small fish for the big fish to be eaten. That is how I perceive it, and that is how I experience it. So if we understand that it is not only what has been done intergenerationally, it is how we stop what is unwanted, what has been proven over and over is dehumanizing to the human, to be stopped and to understand life from a healthy lens, from a healthy scope. If we understand this, we're going to start by empowering, by educating, by informing every female at early age. Nevertheless, and I say, as there are the perpetrators can be any sex or gender. Yes, it's not, but it is based on what has been taken in their neurofunction and structure and their electrobiochemistry, what they are striving on, the dopamine rush, or the thrill, or the harm to get to have pleasure, or they are thriving on giving, caring, and that the perpetrator as well is taking advantage of. They call it let me say it. So we have two things here to understand the postpartum depression from a complete different lens, from trauma, from unresolved CPTSD, from intergenerational trauma, from the stressors that the mother has been gone through her pregnancy, and the fear of tomorrow. What could happen to them more, and the child will witness or live or being tormented with. The fear of going back to the same environment that infused fear, guilt, shame. It is the big why for the mother. It is the big why. And it is fearful. And the body started to present this as a reactive response. It is not It is not rejection of the child. It is what has been processing within them on the electrophysiology and neurophysiology. And the body adopted the rejection because many times they have been rejected, they have been tormented, they have been fearful to speak out, they have been like threatened, maybe they have been lost hope, or they are perceived like helpless, hopeless, and trouble. So all this impact the the bonding and the attachment which sits the central nervous system of the baby. We hear the lower the lower level of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, that is the physiological and safety and trust and belonging, and then we go back to the self-fulfillment, or the self-esteem, the belonging, things like that. So it is started with the body. It starts with the body. So if we wouldn't establish safety, we'll have to go back. It is not only what you eat, what you drink, or what you feed, what you put in your mouth. It's a huge different mechanism. The body language is not only what is I see externally, but what has been metabolizing internally. And even now when I speak, yes, the sensation, or the sensations within the skin, how it feels when the person recalls some incidents or being in a specific. We are in the grinder culture that people forgot they are alienated from themselves. They are being taken away from themselves. Because if the person is connected and aware how their body is functioning, they are going to be aware of the environment. They are not reacting, or they are their body is, the reactivity is running the show, and they present this fallacy of aggression toward them. So that is a whole different talk about the bonding and attachment and the power of the touch. It starts from there. If this didn't happen, yes, there is something that in the sensory, in the tactile of the child, they are missed. Over the time, the sense of safety and trust is going to be shaped by the environment, but they didn't know what it is. So whatever is presented to them, they are observing as if it is the norm, whether positive or negative. It's a whole talk, because most of us still interpersonal relationships, we say, from the regulated central nervous system. How the connections are shaped and how we are wired, and its impact on health and disease in our life. But when it comes to the largest brain in your body, that is a whole different talk. That is by itself, it needs an inventory to be taken. Um, Let me see this. So let me, I'm gonna send this video because maybe somebody will benefit from it. But let me see it. I'm gonna share this video. Yeah, because it talks about with the cranial nerve as well and the touch points. This is the grounding, the establishment of safety and trust. It has to be first the mom and the child, because it's growing and creating the self of safety in them. It makes a lot, it rewire their central nervous system. And I spoke about the power of touch before. And then, so it is so important to understand that the sense of establishing this trust, it has to come from a truly responsible, trusted person, not not a perpetratory uh, behavior, especially if it's untrusted caregiver, for example, is gonna shape the shock if the unresponsible caregiver presented another way of the touch into the child or the individual. That will bring a shock and contradiction that will create a highly inner conflict of shame, guilt, fear, because the child will be perceive that they did something wrong. It is their fault that allowed this to happen. Imagine they are carrying this shame with them and their guilt with them, and you see it into this body language early when the pull push dynamic happen between the aggressor and the target. The push pull, it is the love hate um, relationship. And what break this is the power of touch. So it can be a healing touch and it can be a destructive touch. So that is so important to understand it, how to understand between the healthy and the unhealthy, and how to how your body can see that, how you can detect it early before it is too late. And still, many females are being labeled that it is their fault, they are the problem for this to happen. Ignoring the lack of knowledge and awareness and education, and identifying what healthy means. If the adult themselves don't know what healthy means, how the child come to know what healthy means? I shared this video because it is so important, and it is and from the point that can build and secure, there is another point at the same level can destruct and create this sense of a lack of safety from early age, and they don't trust anything when it comes to touch. So, are we aware of that? So, let us see what the role of this disconnection between aggression and how it come with and when it comes to the skin, the tactile perception. Sensory neurons in the skin detect the stimuli such as pressure, temperature, or pain. That is the normal physiological, sending signals to the sensosomatic cortex for processing, and part of the healing process. That's why we say somatic experiences. That is the body, how the body feels, and it can drive all type of behavior, so that many who are not aware, they are going to be confused, they're going to judge, they are going to label, they are going to create chaos around the individual, the chaotic environment and chaotic perceptions is not healthy. This sensory input is vital for emotional and behavioral responses. Touch stimuli processed through the skin can influence emotional state and social behavior. Touch is a fundamental sensory modality that is primarily processed through the skin, which contains a variety of specialized receptors sensitive to different types of mechanical stimuli, such as pressure, vibration, and temperature. Beyond its primary sensory function, tactile stimulation plays a critical role in shaping emotional experience and social interactions. Affective affective means it relates with emotion, or gentle touch are processed by specialized C tactile or CT afferent fiber, which are unmyelinated nerve fibers found in hairy skin. Unlike the fast conducting A beta fiber, responsible for discriminative touch, texture, shape. For the C tactile afferent fibers, respond preferentially to slow, gentle stroking at skin temperature and convey pleasant tactile sensations. These CT's afferent signals are transmitted to brain regions involved in emotional processing, like insula, orbitofrontal cortex. That's it's played in the dysregulation of the aggression as well, and the anterior cingulate, rather than primary sensosomatic cortex, suggesting that CT fibers are specialized for affective touch rather than purely sensory discrimination. The activation of CT afferent through affective touch has been shown to promote calming, affiliative, and bonding response. So that's to say, the first touch between the mom and the child, skin to skin touch. This tactile input can reduce stress, lower heart rate. So this is regulating what? The autonomic nervous system. Heart rate, and enhance feelings of safety and social connection. For example, gentle stroking during a social touch between caregivers and infants or between adults plays a crucial role in attachment formation, emotional regulation, and the development of pro-social behaviors. And be aware, the aggressors are very clever in mimicking through social behavior. They don't feel the feeling, they mimic it, they imitate, they allow the person to feel that they are empathetic with them, or they feel what they feel, but they are not. They are mimicking. For the aggressor, they are mimicking, they don't feel the feeling. And they are very clever and intelligent at that. Research indicates that touch-mediated activation of these neuroaffective pathways contributes to the release of neurochemicals like the oxytocin, that is the bonding, and endorphin, the feeling good dopamine. Endorphin as well is being increased or infused by a hot shower. So when the person takes a hot shower, there's more endorphin. That is as a pain after exercise, hot shower, there is no pain in the body for the muscle aches and things like that due to endorphin, which further enhances social bonding and reduce anxiety. This aligns with finding that social touch can modulate mood, improve emotional well-being, and even influence behaviors like cooperation and trust. So that is in the healthy model. In the healthy model, emotional regulation, pro-social behaviors, adaptation, attachment formation, trust, cooperation, all feeling good and well-being, coherence. But when this is mimicked by a breaking of all of this, the distrust and the perceptual or the inner conflict of what is a trusted touch is, that will inflict a lot other scenarios. You see it in we call they call them non-compliant. It's they are rebellious, they are non-compliant, they are defiant. But what broke their trust, and what is the inner conflict in taking place? No one pay attention to that, what happened in between, and if the child or the adolescent or the young adult is going to be believed. This all shape another psychological distress within the formula, that the body is taking it personally and defend and protect through the defensive mechanisms and the reactive, and they are perceived as the aggressor or aggressive, and they are the offender. So it is tough to discriminate between all of that, and who can pay attention and detect to this narrative and listen and take cues and collect like patterns over time, what actually happened, and be interested to understand why this taking place, not to increase their stigma and judgment and the shame and guilt and fear, but to understand where can the healing is taking place, and by identifying where the rapture took place and how and when and things like that. So and that's why we see many are seeking their unwanted, their hate to the touch and their hate to the sensation that it's repeating over and over and over. They seek to self-harm, they seek to substance use, they seek a binge eating, emotional eating. They seek sometimes to the opposite, that they can contribute to the bonding process. Addiction to the same harm has done to them, so they are seeking this thrill or this stimulation over and over by selecting unhealthy relationships just to get this surge over and over and over, so that it changes their autonomic and their central nervous system and their perceptual experience. So we have to understand that what has took place, what rupture, and that from what point the behavior is operating. So why are deeply interviewed with the regulation of emotional states and the facilitation of social behavior? This understanding highlights the importance of tactile experiences in both developmental and adult social contexts, and underscores why impairment in tactile processing can have broad psychological and interpersonal consequences. So we don't understand only the superficial, what is happening in front of me, what the underlying causing for this. Touch is one of the most fundamental sensory experience and is primarily processed through specialized receptors in the skin. However, beyond simply providing a symbol about physical stimuli such as pressure, texture, and temperature, touch has a profound influence on emotional regulation and social behavior. Affective touch is conveyed by the unique class of nerve fiber called the C tactile afferents. As I stated, these fibers respond preferentially to gentle, slow stroke typical of social or affectionate touch and send signals to the brain regions involved in the emotional processing, like the insula or prefrontal cortex. This specialized pathways distinguish affective touch from the discriminative touch mediated by other faster nerve fibers that relay tactile formation or information necessary for object manipulation and spatial awareness. The activation of the C tactile afferent by affective touch result in feelings of comfort, safety, and bonding, which can modulate emotional states by reducing stress and anxiety. Imagine if this inner conflict present and this touch was unhealthy, so that is increased stress. The opposite, it would gonna do the opposite of what gentle touch can do. It's gonna increase the stress and anxiety, and this increase the stress response, immune response, inflammatory cytokines, and this cascade of metabolic and changes in the electrophychemistry signaling, communication, responding, intake and reuptake of specific neurotransmitters, increase of excitatory or inhibitory neurochemicals like glutamate, histamine, such as between caregivers and infant and among adults in close relationships. The neurochemical changes triggered, such as touch, including the release of oxytocin and endorphin, further support the social attachment and emotional well-being. Touch is not only a sensory input, but also a critical means by which humans communicate, affect, and maintain social cohesion. Impairment in affective touch processing may contribute to difficulties in emotional regulation and social interaction observed in various psychological disorders. The way touch stimuli are processed through the skin has far-reaching effect on individuals' feel and relate to others socially, highlighting the skin as an important organ for both sensing and emotional connection. So, neurobiological mechanisms underlying tactile sensation, focusing on the distinction between discriminative touch and affective touch. The findings from the neurophysiology and neuroimaging and behavioral studies to delineate how affective types of touch are processed by distinct neural pathways. And now these pathways contribute not only to sensory perceptions, but also to emotional and social experiences. So it doesn't take like multiple events. It can take only one event that changes the trajectory between the sensory perception, the emotional and social experiences. Presenting an integrative view that explore the neurobiological foundation of tactile sensation with a particular emphasis on distinguishing two fundamentally different types of touch, discriminative touch and affective touch. This distinction is crucial to highlight that touch is not a uniform sensory experience, but instead involves multiple neural systems specialized for different functions. Discriminative touch refers to the tactile formation that allows individuals to detect and interpret the physical properties of objects like texture, pressure, vibration, and special details. This type of touch is mediated by fast conducting myelinated A beta fibers that transmit signaling primarily to the primary sensosomatic cortex, enabling fine tactile discrimination and precision motor response. Affective touch relates to the emotional and social dimension of tactile expression or experience. It is mediated by a specialized subset of unmyelinated nerve fibers known as C-tactile or CT afferents, which respond optimally to gentle, slow stroking, typically associated with social and affiliative contact. These CT afferent send signals to brain areas implicated in emotional processing, like, as I stated before, insular orbitofrontal cortex and anterior cingulate cortex, rather than to primary sensory cortex. This neural circuitry underpins the effective, rewarding, and bonding qualities of touch. So the neurophysiological recording, the detail, the response properties of peripheral nerve fibers, functional neuroimaging studies that map brain regions activated by different tactile stimuli and behavioral experiments that demonstrate the influence of touch on emotional regulation and social bonding. By integrating these diverse methodologies, there is a comprehensive framework explaining how touch serves both a sensory modality and a critical channel for emotional communication. So there is a dual pathways for touch to contribute to various psychological and social functions, such as stress reduction, development of attachment bonds, and promotion of pro-social behaviors. This understanding has important implications for clinical conditions where affective touch processing is disrupted, such as, like, for example, it is disrupted in autism spectrum disorders and anxiety. And we have to understand the neurofunction and structure of autism spectrum disorders, completely different from PTSD, CPTSD, anxiety, depression, and all of that. However, the dysregulation that is in the biomarkers on the neurobiology of the central nervous system dysregulation. So we understand also here that the tactile sensations compromises two functionally distinct systems, one dedicated to object identification and environmental interaction, and another specialized in emotional and social connection. The view underscores that the tactile processing extend beyond simple sensation to deeply influence human affective experience and social behavior. So we have to understand this has more distinctive or a more integrative approach that to understand that your emotions is complex as well with your perceptual experience from when we add touch into the equation. Discriminative touch, as I stated, this aspect of touch allows the detection of fine tactile details, such as texture, pressure, vibration, spatial location. It is mediated by fast conducting myelinated A beta afferent fibers, which project primarily in the primary sensosomatic cortex. This system supports the identification and manipulation of objects and is essential for tasks like requiring for manual dexterity. So I'd like to see as well For the discriminative touch, it has part of it as the sixth sense as well. How you can feel the environment, can you feel things even it is not so close to you, but you can sense it within a range. That is a unique experience. So, affective touch or emotional touch refers to the perception of pleasant, comforting, tactile sensations that are crucial for social bonding and emotional regulation. This form of touch is conveyed to slow conducting because the myelination, the good myelination, the healthy myelination of the nerve end fibers and the neurons and within the nerves. So this increases the conductness of the signaling. Unmyelinated, this means there is a slow conducting of the signaling. So unmyelinated, the C tactiles afferent found prominently in hair skin. Um, the C tactile afferent respond optimally to slow, gentle stroking from 1 to 10, 1 to 10 centimeters, which is typically of social and affiliative touch. A comprehensive comparison between affective touch and discriminative. It can be be understood through the physiological, the neural pathways, the functions, and the behavior and implications of the affective touch. So affective touch is specialized for emotional and social function and is mediated by slow conducting C-tactile afferents as primary, which elicit pleasant sensation and activate brain regions tied to affect and reward. This system evolves to support social bonding, caregiving, and emotional well-being. Discriminative touch is involves in fast conducting and it's myelinated A beta fibers that convey detailed, especially precise tactile information to the sensory cortex, allowing individual to explore and manipulate the environment effectively. So that's using your your sense of touch to navigate through the environment and manipulate objects. So here, affective touch involves a slow, gentle stroking process, the C tactile afferent, linked to emotional regulation, social bonding, and comfort. It modulates stress response, promoting attachment and social behavior. One of the stress reduction techniques is just you put your hand on your heart like this, and you breathe in and out from the nose. That calm, and that is the sense of safety, restoring the sense of safety to the body. So who you are going to give the safety for first? It's yourself. For yourself first. When I feel safe, everybody will feel safe around as well, because that what will calming the parasympathetic and activating the parasympathetic response and regulating the sympathetic response. If you have like the increased heart rate, sweat, breathing, all this escalate with a stress response. The power of touch, that's a securing. You put your hand and you do in and out. The diaphragmatic breathing is in and out from the nose, and just like feel your breath, that is regulating the autonomic response. So the power of touch again in regulating your autonomic nervous system and restoring a sense of safety and trust to yourself. Sometimes they say from part of the trauma, of the neurobiology of trauma, give yourself a hug. You hug yourself like this. So this is restoring the sense of safety and trust. Some say one hand at the abdominal area and one hand on your heart or your chest. So you put both hands and you breathe in and out, as well as feel your feet touching the ground. That is part of the sensations as well. Feel safe, and you breathe in and out from the nose, and you calm the the unsecured child, or the disrupted sense of peace within. So you're gonna restore sense of safety and trust to yourself and within your body. I am safe in my body. I am secure in my body. I am here and now, and I'm here in the now. So you have this internal dialogue that you are listening to your breathing, and your heart rate will slow down, and that is restoration of your homeostasis. So that is part of, like, you can do it. You can do it like a couple of minutes every day, or you can when you feel like in the agency of like your heart rate is escalating, you just put your hand on your chest and breathe in and out from your nose, and assure to yourself that you're safe. Um, you trust where you are. So that is the sense, because the brain is just believing what already is perceived. That's what is happening. So you are restoring the sense of safety. So trauma I stated before, trauma has a huge role in aggression, especially really relational trauma or abuse. It can dysregulate the processing of affective touch. So where the disruption occur, disrupting emotional regulation and social connection pathways. And we have the theory of the polyvagal theory, the vagus nerve. In individuals with trauma histories often exhibit altered the tactile perception, including hypersensitivity or avoidance to affective touch. Aggression and domestic violence have been linked to deficit in affective touch processing, where impaired tactile affective circuits reduce the ability to regulate emotions and perceive social cues, increasing reactive aggression. Discriminative touch is less implicated in these emotional deficits, but may be affected indirectly through hypervigilance to environment stimuli to trauma survivors, which means they are not aware of where they are, what they are doing. There are many scenarios are running in their brain, activating their autonomic nervous system, keeping this dysregulated the central nervous system and hypervigilance, and not aware of their where they are, or they are the like the understanding of themselves and others. Cluster A, like for example, paranoid, schizoid, or schizotypal. So these individuals tend to be socially detached, suspicious, and emotionally restricted, that may exhibit reduced sensitivity or avoidance of affective touch. Consistent with impaired social bonding and emotional connection. Such avoidance may exacerbate social isolation and mistrust, potentially increasing risk to reactive aggression in interpersonal context. Cluster B is characterized by Emotional dysregulation, impulsivity, and interpersonal instability, often linked to histories of trauma and abuse. Affective touch dysfunction in these disorders may underlie difficulties in emotional modulation and attachment, heightening vulnerability to aggression and violent behavior, including domestic violence. Discriminative touch is generally preserved, but may be heightened due to hypervigilance or sensory processing abnormalities. And so, cluster C involves anxiety and fear of rejection, often resulting in heightened sensitivity to social stimuli. Individuals might exhibit heightened sensitivity or ambivalence toward the affective touch, reflecting a fear of intimacy, yet a desire for connection. This ambivalence may contribute to internalized aggression or difficulties expressing needs in relationships, sometimes increasing conflict indirectly. So we don't understand the inner conflict if it unless it is identified, validated, and observed and processed, it's gonna build up into the external conflict. Affective touch pathway, the C tactile afferent insula or prefrontal are critical in modulating emotional states, social cognition, and attachment. Disruptions in these pathways due to trauma or personality pathology compromise emotional regulation, increasing susceptibility to aggression and domestic violence. Discriminative touch pathways remain primarily involved in sensory discrimination, but may contribute to trauma-related hypervigilance, where heightened environmental awareness exacerbates anxiety and reactive aggression. So some of the alternative interventions like massage therapy, somatic experiencing, the person needs to feel safe in their body. They are in alignment with their body. They are not hating on it. They are not rejecting it because perceived or experienced rejection can lead to the manifestation of the person or the victim started to reject themselves, so they are already compliant with what the aggressor wanted them to do, and that increase the double on the central nervous system regulation or dysregulation. In individuals with trauma and cluster B personality, understanding individuals the differences in touch processing across personality clusters can guide personalized approaches for addressing aggression and relational dysfunction in domestic violence context. So biologically, neurologically, all systems operate currently and complement each other to create a rich tapestry of human tactile experience. While discriminative touch informs us about the physical world, affective touch informs us about the social context and emotional balance. How far it is matching what it is presented. Together, they enable humans not only to interact physically with their surroundings, but also to connect emotionally with others. The human tactile system is uniquely designed with two complementary but distinct pathways, discriminative touch and affective touch, that work in concert to create rich and multifaceted experience of the world through the scan. But imagine, because we're all about the lived experience, the what happened in the moment, that is all what shaped the perceptual perception and the the interconnectedness with the world. Discriminative touch allows us to precisely perceive and interpret physically properties of objects and surfaces around us. It provides crucial information about texture, pressure, shape, and vibration, enabling us to manipulate tools, recognize objects, and navigate our environment safely and effectively. That is played well in situational awareness. This system is essential for our interaction with the physical world, relying on rapid transmission of because they are myelinated of tactile signals via fast conducting a beta fibers because they are myelinated. So fast signal transduction between the synaptic connections and neurosignaling to the somatosensory cortex, where detailed special maps of touch are constructed. Effective touch serves a fundamentally different role, processed by slower C tactile afferents, unmyelinated, slow. Affective touch conveys the emotional quality of tactile stimuli. This pathway underpins the perception of pleasant, confronting touch, such as gentle cares that foster social bonding, emotional regulation, and the finding of safety and belonging, the Maslow hierarchy of needs. So, physical safety, trust, and belonging. The affective touch system activates brain regions involved in emotion, reward, and social cognition, like insula or prefrontal cortex, integrating tactile sensations with internal emotional states and social context. So these two tactile systems allow humans not only to physically interact with their surroundings, but also to connect emotionally with others. For example, when a mother strokes her infant, the discriminative system identifies that physical touch, but the affective system communicates warmth and safety, facilitating attachment and emotional security. Similarly, affective touch in adult relationships help regulate stress and promote trust and empathy, reinforcing social bonding. This dual processing enriches the human experience by merging sensory information with emotional meaning, without that is with the lived experience, that the meaning making, what does it mean for you, how it makes you feel, and what you wish could happen. Without the discriminative touch, the world would be physically ambiguous and difficult to navigate. Without affective touch, our interactions would lack emotional depth and social nuance. The synergy of these systems underlie not only basic survival, but also the complexity of human relationships and emotional health. Discriminative and affective touch systems operate simultaneously and interactively, forming a sophisticated tactile network that supports both our engagement with the environment and our capacity for social connection and emotional well being. So, this insights that gives the potential for the tactile based interventions to enhance emotional regulation and social connection. And it can present a critical resource for researchers and clinicians interested in how the skin functions, not only as a sensory organ, but also as a medium for emotional communication, shaping human experience at both biological and psychological levels. We call it the power of touch. So, the C-tactile afferent to project in the brain region distinct from those involved in discriminative, including the posterior posterior insular cortex, orbitofrontal cortex, and they are master players in many things. Anterior cingulate cortex, areas associated with emotional processing, interoception, and social cognition. Activation of these areas to affective touch modulates emotional state, promoting feelings and well-being, comfort, and social connectedness. Effective touch plays a key role in human development, particularly mother-infant bonding and attachment formation. The sensation of gentle touch helps regulate stress responses and foster the development of secure interpersonal relationships. So this understanding or this integrations of in the touch systems may contribute a lot to the psychiatric and neurodevelopmental disorders like autism spectrum disorders and anxiety disorders, where social and emotional processing are impaired. Understanding the dual roles of discriminative and affective touch provides insights to therapeutic interventions like tactile therapies and social touch-based treatments. Um, we say in the due to the impairment in the social and emotional processing explained by atypical responses to affective touch. Individuals, for example, with autism spectrum frequently exhibit altered tactile sensitivities or avoidance of social touch, which can exacerbate difficulties with social bonding and emotional regulation. So, yeah, understanding that the touch, like the and the advancement in its role in emotional regulation and social bonding and attachment and connectedness. Um, there is a need for differentiating the sensory and emotional component of the touch systems, as they are not merely a physical sense but also critical channel for emotional communication. So how the emotional communication restructure the biological mechanisms and how its impact on the metabolic of specific neurotransmitters and hormones, and the interaction between the 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 perceptual experience or the human experience within the context of trauma, of their environment, of their socioculture context, how this can alter the alter the peripheral and central neural mechanisms. How can this happen? It's a lot to understand and a lot to analyze. And we'll start with the stimuli. Yes, uh, or stimuli, individuals, or a situation. So we see their environment, look at the context, would look at the triggers, who was there presented. Is it an one single event, or it is a repetitive event? All this needs does it that it come with a cluster, one A B C D present. So can I identify A B C D and just and not to look for them, but see the situation from the perspective of these within this cluster or within the context, and then make an informed analysis about it and present exactly and put it to test, not only to judge or blame or shift or guilt, but to understand what should I modify, what should I do differently next time. So that is a learning opportunity. It is not a something that you can ignore, and it can delineate or deplete the individual over time. So it has everything impact your neurofunction and structure without without your permission, without you know or not. And that's an important factor. I realized that why certain things happen this way. What that was a lot of why. And then I presented that was it the inner conflict. The inner conflict. What is your understanding about the inner conflict? That the expectation and what happened and how the contradiction presented this inner conflict within, and that is when over time, if it is not unresolved, the shame, guilt, and fear is gonna become the identity of the person. They come. They are they are gonna present themselves with these labels. Imagine that would say what baggage are you carrying, what baggage are you carrying, and are you aware of it? Are you aware of it? What do you do about it? What are you doing about it? If we talk about the perceptual experience within many settings is going to be like um, a fertile academy. Is like it's a whole different school by itself, because this is presenting your electrobiochemistry in function, how it functions. When the person has diabetes, it doesn't happen at a sudden. When they have hypertension, it doesn't happen at a sudden. Cardiovascular doesn't happen at a sudden. If they have a stroke, it doesn't happen at a sudden. If they have a neurological disorder, it doesn't happen at a sudden. If there is gene mutation silencing, it doesn't happen at a sudden. So the list goes on and on and on, and that goes back to the attachment theory, to the regulation of the central nervous system, the what I say again, with certain attachment, your personality, your temperament. I did a video about the temperament, and all of this equation comes with its biological predisposition and with the environment, and then whatever in between input and the developmental stage the person is at in. And if the person has already, since they were born, they have these abnormalities in their neurofunction or structure, or it has been altered over time because, as I said, the exposure to the stressors, the psychological distress, the violence, that the unwanted experiences that they have to be, we call it the waves of the ocean, just to get and shovel the life out of them. So that is all how it reflects on neurobiology, and how it changes the neurofunction and structure, and how it alters the biosystems, and how it can present the allostatic load over time. That requires awareness. That requires awareness. That requires a whole different language of who am I. I'm not my title. Who am I internally? And that is reflecting on the neurofunctional structure, the bias system, the allostatic load, the excitotoxicity ratio. And that is what I know who you are. No matter what you are putting outside, but how you function internally, are you functioning from the perspective to harm or to cooperate, to exist or to survive, to manipulate or to be straightforward, um, to have a healthy lifestyle or to have a chaotic lifestyle. And having chaotic lifestyle or dysfunctional lifestyle, that is not going to benefit anyone. So we have to understand, but some are designed to have pleasure on the chaos. So we have to be aware of that. That exists. That exists. They have pleasure in the chaos of others. So once they have this escalated situations over time, day after day, that is that the trauma driven environment, that is how they function, and it serves a purpose. So we have to understand that. So how we are aware, how far your window of tolerance and regulation of your central nervous system. You can be clever at masking calmness and well collected, but internally you are like, so but this feeling, the internal feelings that you are going through, they are eating you alive. The aggressor has, they are mimicking the feelings. They don't feel the feelings. They mimic the feelings. They don't feel the feelings. How you can be aware of that? Because how you feel in their presence and how you feel after they left you, that will tell a lot. So if you are in the presence of somebody and you came with expectations, but you walked in the situation with your expectations, but then your expectations are being disrupted. Understand that is not a healthy mechanism or function. People sometimes they do it consciously and unconsciously. But if they are aware, how does this behavior bring joy into them in bringing chaos and harm to others? If they are like not dopamine driven for the thrill and the chaos and the harm of others to be have pleasures, and they don't feel it, that that is unchangeable. That is who they are or how they are functioning. But if the person is doing it as a social culture norm and tribal survival, and do this to fit, do this to or fake it till you make it, or something like that, so that is a responsibility, a huge responsibility, and it demoralizes the person, or it lower their moral compass over time. And we understand that many can go through this under pressure, and with aging, with time, they started to say the demoralization of the personality. So there's less moral, and they are not the person they used to be. So that is lifted the huge when the target become the aggressor. So they are uh, self prophecy or something like that. So you are shaping a whole different world around them, and they can even harm those who once trusted them. And that is not safe. That is not safe, and they can impact how how the how they would like the environment be perceived. So that's part of the control as well. So another point is recognition and cognitive processing. So recognition is a fundamental cognitive function that allows individuals to identify and interpret stimuli, people, situation encountered in the environment. This process involves the integration of sensory information with stored memories, enabling individuals to make sense of their surroundings and respond appropriately. The hippocampus and the adjacent temporal lobe structures are crucial for recognition memory, facilitating the encoding, storage, and retrieval of the information about previously experienced stimuli. And you sense it even with your scan, you sense it. Recognition is always vital for something something as well for human behavior, for those who are highly traumatized. So their sense of fear, and they shrink into the fetus position, into the fetus. They would like to feel that they are going back to nobody. They are going back to nobody. And this is how I see it. It is holding their body like this, because they want to cling on something. They want to cling on something, or they are dissociated, that they go back to nobody, no name, no life, no sensations. And that is a highly traumatized reaction when you see this fetus position. Um, the person may not come back again. They're going to stay like this. And this we can see more in highly sensitive borderline personality disorders, or what we call the part of the outliers. uh, that highly that it is a subconscious decision, that they are disconnected from the world, and they going back to the womb. So imagine, so with no identity, with no body. Yeah, so a lot of not only pathological or physiological, it is the conceptualization of what had happened, of their lived experience. and the sense that they have been failed by everyone, every system, everything, every single thing in the life. So they haven't built the capacity to process every situation, because I said it, they have this dysregulated overwhelmed central nervous system. Overwhelmed means that the body cannot handle it anymore, cannot handle. So the separation from the self is much better. And that is tough, and that requires like a high. I see some of the salutogenic designs, yes, but it, because it is so complex to understand the science behind it, it requires a whole different salutogenic design for such a high dissociative, self-alienated, self-disconnected, and no body alienation, like the fetus stay position, that require them specific environment. And I'm thinking of it as like it's a design, I haven't seen it, but I think about it a lot. So like, what if, because what the fetus needs to grow, it is what is around them that nurture and carry and make them safe so they can open up and grow. I haven't seen a design like that. I see multiple designs, but the design I am imagining, I haven't seen it yet. Especially with highly traumatized children and adolescents. The more we put them in a setting like with walls and toughness, as if we are telling, we are putting them, as I said, life sentence or imprisonment. And imagine that what can do to already alter the neurofunction and structure and biological system. Imagine, but if, yeah, I don't know, but it's require a whole shift in seeing beyond the veil, seeing beyond the veil, and that's what I am interested in. How to bring a person to life. It is not easy. They say they are alive, they are eating, they are breathing, but this is not life. This is not what means truly life. How to bring somebody to life. That's a whole shift. It's not a title. It's not a position. It's not dominance. I don't know. I don't see the world as before. I don't. So let us go back to recognition is especially vital for social behavior as it supported the identification of familiar individuals, recognition of emotional expressions, And the interpretation of social cues, important to see social cues, as I say, the A, B, C, D, the clusters, see what cues are presented to you, the context of the situation, people, places, time. These abilities enable adaptive social interactions, such as discerning friend from enemy, or recognizing social norms and expectations beyond the social context. Oh, sorry. As I drink my water. So, beyond the social context, recognition processes contribute to memory formation and decision making, allowing, and when the meaning making is done and the memory formation, it's easy for the decision. We make decisions 24/7, allowing individuals to use past experiences to inform present choices and actions. One notable example of recognition processing is facial recognition, which relies heavily on the fusiform face area (FFA), a specialized region within the temporal lobe. The fusiform face area selectively responded to faces and is essential for distinguishing between individual identities and recognizing emotional expression, thereby underpinning crucial aspects of social cognition. It's like the child recognize their mother. Yeah. Dysfunction in this area or related neural circuit can lead to deficit such prosopagnosia, where individuals are unable to recognize familiar faces, significantly impairing social functioning. Recognition and cognitive processing are complex neural operations mediated by temporal lobe structures that enable humans to navigate social environments, build memories, and make informed decisions based on prior experiences. Facial recognition is a highly specialized and complex cognitive process that enables the humans to identify and differentiate between individual faces, which is essential for social interaction and communication. Central to this ability in the fusiform face area, a distinct region located in the inferior temporal cortex of the brain. The fusiform face area is selectively activated by face stimuli, distinguishing it from other areas involved in general object recognition. The fusiform face area as a neural hub that processes facial features holistically rather than piecemeal, allowing rapid and accurate recognition of familiar and unfamiliar faces alike. This holistic processing facilitates the detection of subtle differences in facial structure, expression, and identity, which are critical for recognizing individuals interpreting emotional cues. And I said emotional cues. So that is learned. Cues are learned over time in navigating social relationships. As we said, the dysfunction can lead to face blindness, where individuals lose the ability to recognize familiar faces despite otherwise normal vision and recognition cognitive function. Such impairment can have profound social consequences, hindering interpersonal communication and social bonding. Localization and function, specifically of the fusiform face area, underscore the brain evolutionary adaptation by prioritizing social information processing, reflecting the importance of social recognition in human survival and societal functioning. Understanding the role of the fusiform face area not only deepens insights into uh, normal cognitive function, but also informs clinical approaches to conditions involving social cognitive deficit. Emotional modulations refer to the regulation of emotional processing through cognitive or neural mechanisms. The prefrontal cortex modulates activity in emotion generating regions such as the amygdala. Effective emotional regulation is linked to increase the activity in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which helps suppress inappropriate emotional reaction. Emotional modulation refers to the brain capacity to regulate and adjust emotional responses based on cognitive processes and neural mechanism. This regulation is essential for adaptive behavior, allowing individuals to respond appropriately to social and environmental stimuli rather than reacting impulsively or inappropriately. Central to this modulation in the prefrontal cortex, which exert top-down control over emotion regenerating regions like amygdala, a key structure involved in processing fear, threat, and other affective responses. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex plays a particularly important role in this regulatory process. Increase the activity in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex associated with cognitive strategies such as reappraisal, where an individual consciously reframed the meaning of an emotional stimuli to reduce its impact. Through such mechanisms of dorsolateral prefrontal cortex helps suppress or modulate excessive or inappropriate emotional reactions, promoting emotional stability and better decision making. Dysfunction in this modulatory circuitry can contribute to emotional dysregulation observed in various psychiatric conditions such as anxiety disorders, depression, and borderline personality disorder, where individuals struggle to manage intense or persistent negative emotions. The interaction between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala amplifies the neural basis of how cognition influences emotions, highlighting the dynamic balance between emotion generation and regulation. Understanding emotional modulation patterns informs both basic neuroscience and clinical approaches aimed at improving emotional regulation. Whether through cognitive behavioral therapies or neuromodulatory intervention targeting prefrontal amygdala circuits. So the integration of neuroscience findings from physiology, psychology, and neurobiology to explain behavior, it provides a multidisciplinary approach to understanding how aggression, recognition, and emotional control are biologically grounded, yet modifiable by experience. Behavior neuroscience is a multidisciplinary field that seeks to understand the biological basis of behavior by integrating insights from physiology, psychology, and neurobiology. This approach emphasizes how neurostructures and functions can give rise to the complex behaviors such as aggression, recognition, and emotional regulation, while also acknowledging the significant role of environmental influences, the experiential factors, in shaping these behaviors. by bridging the gap between microscopic neural processes and macroscopic observable behaviors. Behavioral neuroscience provides a comprehensive framework for understanding how brain circuits, neurotransmitters, and hormone interact with learning, memory, and the social context to influence behavioral outcomes. For example, aggressive behavior is not only linked to specific neural regions such as the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, but is also modulated by hormonal changes and environmental stressors. Cognitive functions like facial recognition are rooted in temporal lobe structures, but can be affected by experience and social learning. Behavioral neuroscience highlights the plasticity of the brain, the ability of neurocircuits to adapt and reorganize in response to experience, which underpins the therapeutic interventions and behavioral modifications. This dynamic interplay underscores the potential for change, demonstrating that although behaviors have biological underpinning, yeah, they are not fixed and can be influenced by environmental enrichment, social interaction, and targeted treatments. Behavioral neuroscience serves as a crucial nexus connecting biological mechanisms with psychological phenomena, offering valuable insights for both basic research and applied clinical practice aimed at understanding and modifying human behavior. Understanding aggression perception through the integumentary system recognition and emotional modulation through the lens of the behavioral neuroscience allows for comprehensive approach for studying human behavior. The integration of all these systems within the discipline of the behavioral neuroscience explores the biological basis of behavior, linking neural mechanisms to cognition and emotional processing. Core areas of interest include aggression, sensory perception, via integumentary system recognition, and emotional modulation. The phenomena are not isolated but interact through shared neural circuits and regulatory pathways. This integration of these areas within behavioral neuroscience offers a multidimensional understanding of how behavior arises from the brain. It's an interdisciplinary field dedicated to uncovering the biological foundations of behavior by elucidating how neural mechanisms underpin cognitive and emotional processing. This main bridges the gap between the physiological substrates of the brain and the complex phenomena of human behavior and experience. Central to the field are key constructs such as aggression, sensory perception, particularly through the integumentary system, the skin, and its associated sensory receptors, recognition, and emotional modulation. These processes are traditionally studied in isolation. However, contemporary research increasingly emphasizes an intersectionality and shared neural circuits that mediates their interaction. Aggression, for an instance, involves a network of brain regions, including amygdala, hypothalamus, prefrontal cortex, which not only influence hostile behavior, but also interface with emotional regulation systems. Similarly, sensory input from the integumentary system, especially affective touch mediated by C-tactile afferent, play a critical role in modulating emotional states and the social behaviors, highlighting the convergence of sensory perception and emotions. Recognition processes, particularly those related to identifying individuals and social cues, engage temporal lobe structures like the fusiform face area, underpinning social cognition and memory, emotional modulation, orchestrated largely by prefrontal cortex circuits, allows to the regulation of affective responses, facilitating adaptive behavior and decision making. Integrating these domains within behavioral neuroscience provides the multidimensional framework that captures how behavior emerges from complex neural interactions shaped not only by intrinsic biological factors but also by environmental and experiential influences. This holistic perspective enhances our understanding of the neural basis of behavior, paving this the way for improved therapeutic strategies targeting maladaptive aggression, sensory processing disorders, recognition deficit, and emotional dysregulation. As I stated before, aggression is a multifaceted behavior response that is mediated by this disrupted neural network encompassing the amygdala, hypothalamus, and prefrontal cortex. These regions collectively regulate not only the initiation of aggressive behavior, but also in its contextual modulation through emotional regulation systems. For example, the prefrontal cortex exerts top-down control over the amygdala to inhibit impulsive aggressive reactions, illustrating the neural substrates of behavioral inhibition and social appropriateness. Sensory perception through the tegumentary system plays a crucial role in shaping emotional and social behavior. Recognition processes, particularly this involved in identifying individuals and interpreting social cue, rely heavily on temporal lobe structures, notably the fusiform face area. Emotional modulation is largely orchestrated by the interaction between prefrontal cortical areas and the amygdala, which together facilitate the regulation of affective responses to environmental stimuli. This circuitry supports adaptive behavior by allowing individuals to regulate emotions in ways that optimize decision making and social interactions. Dysfunction in this area, in these circuits, is implicated in various psychopathological characterized by impaired emotional regulation and maladaptive aggression. So the prefrontal cortex plays a pivotal role in modulating aggressive impulses through the top-down inhibitory control. This brain region supports executive functions such as decision-making, impulse control, and social cognition, all of which contribute to the regulation of aggressive behavior in socially appropriate ways. Impairment in prefrontal cortical function observed in certain psychiatric disorders or following brain injury are often linked to increased aggression due to diminished regulatory control over subcortical areas like amygdala. So aggression is regulated by distributed neural network involving limbic structures like the amygdala and hypothalamus, which mediates emotional and physiological responses alongside the prefrontal cortex, which exerts regulatory control. Hormonal modulators such as testosterone and cortisol further influence this system, shaping individual differences in aggressive behaviors. Understanding these mechanisms provide valuable insights for developing interventions targeting pathological aggression and related disorders. So the skin is, or the tegumentary system, primarily composed of the skin, plays a vital role in tactile perception, which influence both emotional and behavioral responses. Sensory receptors in the skin relay information about touch, temperature, and pain to the somatosensory cortex, allowing for responses to environmental stimuli. Importantly, effective touch can promote social bonding and emotional regulation, engaging specific pathways like C tactile afferent that are distinct from those used in discriminative touch. So that the tegumentary system is not merely a passive receptor of environmental stimuli, but an active participant in shaping emotional and social experiences. It's a dual sensory pathways, discriminative touch mediated by fast conducting myelinated fibers, and affective touch mediated by C tactile afferent highlight the complex and multifaceted nature of tactile perception. This integration of sensory and affective information through the skin ultimately influence behavioral responses that are critical for interpersonal connection and adaptive emotional regulation. Emotional modulation involves in regulation of affective states through the autonomic and controlled neural processes. The prefrontal cortex is central to this regulation, especially in down-regulating amygdala responses during emotional reappraisal or suppression tasks. Dysregulation in these circuits has been implicated in mood disorders like anxiety and depression, where heightened emotional responses are poorly managed. Behavior neuroscience offers a holistic framework in integrating these individuals' processes. It emphasizes how brain regions interact to produce complex behaviors shaped by genetic and environmental influences, the interplay of sensory perception, like the tegumentary system, recognition, emotional regulation, and aggression exemplifies how the brain orchestrates adaptive and maladaptive behavior. This integrative approach allows for more targeted intervention in clinical psychology and psychiatry and behavioral therapy. Another thing is that aggression is not only simply a behavior output, but a product of the brain interpretation of environment cues, internal affective state, and prior social learning. The interplay between the hypothalamus, amygdala, and the prefrontal cortex illustrates how emotions, recognition, and executive function must work in synchronicity for appropriate behavior expression. Disruption in any of these systems, uh, like system, be it sensory, microprocessing, memory deficits, or emotion dysregulation, can be cascade into behavioral pathologies such as impulsive aggression, social withdrawal, and emotional instability. Synthesizing findings across neural systems of behavioral neuroscience promotes a biopsychosocial understanding of behavior, acknowledging not only the neuroanatomical and neurochemical underpinning of action, but also the influence of environment, development, and individual experience. This integrative approach is especially valuable in clinical context as it guides the developmental of targeted interventions, whereas the pharmacological, behavioral, and neuromodulatory for a wide range of psychological and neurodevelopmental or disorders. Understanding aggression, sensory perception, recognition, and emotional modulation through the lens of behavioral neuroscience reveals intricate, interconnected nature of human behavior. While rooted in disconnect in neural mechanisms, contribute to a larger neurobehavioral network that governs how we perceive, react to, and navigate the world. The prefrontal cortex regulation of emotion, the fusiform gyrus role is in social recognition. The integumentary system affective touch processing are not merely isolated functions, they form an integrated system that support adaptive functioning and social cohesion. When these systems are compromised by injury, disease, or developmental anomalies, the resulting dysfunction highlight just how independent these processes truly are. The field of behavioral neuroscience equips researchers and clinicians with the tools to decode these relationships, of offering critical insights that inform evidence-based interventions, personalized treatment strategies, and improved outcomes in mental health care. As our understanding deepens, so too does our capacity to translate neural science into real world impact, supporting healthier emotional regulation, more accurate perception and recognition, and ultimately more adaptive human behavior. Another thing you would like is to cultivate self-awareness. How to cultivate self-awareness? This is a critical extension of emotional modulation, and the behavioral regulation involves the early recognition of red flags, subtle or overt signs that an individual's emotional and behavioral responses are becoming maladaptive. How to cultivate the self-awareness. These warning signs may manifest physiologically, for example, elevated heart rate, muscle tension, gastrointestinal discomfort, cognitively like racing thoughts, negative self-talk, behaviorally irritability, avoidance, aggression, socially withdrawal, conflict, misreading cues. From a behavioral neuroscience standpoint, these red flags often indicate dysregulation within prefrontal limbic circuits, overactivation of the amygdala, or sensory overload, particularly in individuals with hypersensitivity to tactile or emotional stimuli. For example, excessive activation of the amygdala is in response to social threats or negative stimuli, paired with insufficient top-down control from the prefrontal cortex, can lead to emotional flooding, a state where I would say, emotional flooding and trauma flooding as well. Responses overwhelm cognitive processing and self-regulation. Similarly, dysfunction in sensory processing systems, including heightened sensitivity to touch, via the documentary system, can contribute to overstimulation and reactive aggression or shutdown behaviors, particularly in individuals with neurodevelopmental or trauma-related conditions. The ability to recognize these red flags in real time is tightly linked to the development of self-awareness, the conscious knowledge of one's emotional states, bodily sensations, and behavioral tendencies. Neuroscientifically, self-awareness engages the medial prefrontal cortex, anterior cingulate cortex, and the insula, the detection system, all of which are involved in interception and sensing of internal bodily state, emotional appraisal, and self-reflective cognition. These areas form a part of default mode network, which is active during interoceptive and self-monitoring tasks. Interoceptive training, engaging the practices such as mindfulness, yoga, body, scan meditation can help individuals tune into subtle physiological cues such as changes in breath, heart rate, muscle tension, before these escalates into dysregulated behavior. This is particularly relevant when sensory feedback from the integumentary system, discomfort within certain textures or touch triggers emotional response. Emotional labeling and journaling. So, how to build again, and here, how to build the self awareness. Accurately labeling emotional experiences enhances prefrontal activation and reduces amygdala hyperactivity. Improving emotional regulation, keeping a daily mood journal can promote reflective awareness and help track patterns that precede emotional or behavioral red flag. Cognitive reappraisal, learning to reframe, restructure, or reframe negative thoughts and reinterpret stressful stimuli, engage in dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and strengthening cognitive control over emotional responses over time. This builds internal awareness of cognitive emotional patterns. Feedback loops, receiving honest, compassionate feedback from others, therapists, peers, and mothers can help individually recognize blind spots in their behavior. Social mirroring, a process rooted in cognition circuits like fusiform face area. However, it is impaired in autistic spectrum disorders. So the mirror neurons, they're not activated. So normally you see that people, when they like something, they imitate it. That is the activation of the mirror neuron, or the function of mirror neurons. And that's another thing we have to pay attention of, how people learn social cues or learn from the social learning, how it occurs, and how this is completely different in autism spectrum disorders. So it is neurofunction, the structure and the dysregulation of the central nervous system within the existence of the biomarkers and the other things of the dysregulated limbic system. So we have to understand that how the person or how the individual is being built, and how what systems they are operating from. For trauma, for this who are highly traumatized as well, this is impaired. So because this may be intentionally, they don't want they decided to shut down this intentionally, so they are not perceiving more overactive stimuli from the environment, with everything will remind them with faces, people, places, time, and environments. So that's, we have to understand what mechanisms, what system they are operating from. There's too much to the human behavior, there's too much to the human condition. My focus is the correlation between health and disease, and how we started to teach what healthy means, so we can prevent all this heart aching and disrupting unhealthy state of social culture, name it, systems around, how we can bring the dignity and integrity to the humans from the basics of how they function, what systems they are function from. Sensory profiling and boundaries, understanding one's unique sensory processing style. For instance, being touch sensitive or easily overwhelmed by noise can inform proactive strategies such as setting physical and emotional boundaries. So, however, socially and culturally, it can be labeled. So expect that, and how you can deal with that. But if you are overloaded or sensitive for specific stimuli, when you are setting your boundary, that is self-awareness, that is self-respect. So how we can shift the culture into self-awareness and self-respect, how to do that, and still we unfunction from labeling, judging, criticizing, gaslighting, love pumping, all whatever it is. It is still intergenerational trauma is running the show, and that is not healthy. This reduces the likelihood of overstimulated that could trigger maladaptive response, because this is started the autonomic response is the defense response, defense mechanism. By integrating the brain, the body, the environment, the behavioral neuroscience reveals that adaptive functioning is contingent upon the capacity to sense, interpret, and regulate both internal and external stimuli. Processes such as aggression, recognition, emotion, regulation, and sensory perception are deeply interconnected, not only within the neural and architecture of the brain, but also in how we experience and respond to the world through the integumentary system, memory system, and social cognition network. The emergence red flags, these early indicators of dysregulation, provides a powerful opportunity for intervention through self-awareness. When individuals can detect and respond to these signs before escalations, they engage higher order brain systems that support the resilience, empathy, and executive control. Developing self-awareness in thus is thus not simply a reflective exercise. It is a neurobiological grounded skill that can be cultivated to promote emotional stability, social functioning, and mental health. In clinical and everyday context, this integrated perspective support multimodal approaches combining cognitive, emotional, sensory, and behavioral interventions to foster well-being by tuning into both the neural signals and the sensory cues of the body. Individuals with practitioners alike can more effectively navigate the complexity of human behavior, promoting a more adaptive, connected, and self-regulated life. So, how to to understand that self-care is brain support care. Self-care is a brain support care or brain health support care. How can we understand that? First, prefrontal cortex is strengthened by reflective practices like journaling, goal setting, improving decision making, and emotional control. Amygdala calmed by relaxing and stress reduction strategies, reducing anxiety and reactive behaviors. Insula and interoceptive networks activate through body awareness, like yoga, deep breathing. And the breath work is like the for me is like the enigma. This is the it connect all the mind and the body and the brain and regulated the heart rate, the breathing, and the sense of the environment, the realization of um, where you are at. Enhancing self-awareness and emotional insights, reward systems, the dopaminergic circuits, supported by enjoyable and meaningful activities, promoting motivation and mood balance. Emotional self-care, it supports emotional modulation and helps prevent burnout and emotional dysregulation. Identify and name emotions that support the prefrontal regulations. Set emotional boundaries, say no when needed. Practice cognitive reappraisal, reframe, restructure negative thoughts. Seek therapy or journaling for emotional processing. Physical self-care supports somatic regulation, stress recovery, and brain-body balance. Prioritize sleep from 7 to 9 hours, restore executive function and emotion regulation. Exercise regularly, aerobic exercise increases neuroplasticity and reduces amygdala hyperactivity. Engage in mind-body practice like stretching, walking in nature. Nutrition, fuel your brain with balanced meals or omega-3 and hydration, that's water. Sensory self-care directly engages the tegumentary system and sensory network to reduce overloaded and simulated calm. Use soothing touch, weighted blankets, massage and warm bath. This is endorphin and yeah, this is attachment. You know, the weighted blanket, it is just the connecting and the sense of safety. Limit exposure to harsh sensory environments like loud noise or clutter. Use aromatherapy or calming music. Music is especially brainwaves. You're mainly made of energy or electricity, so it's all signaling. Everything is signaling. Where biochemistry change into and electro change into bio. So you are integrated or originally. You are signaling. Music, especially brain waves, based on we have alpha, beta, theta, gamma. Gamma for highly focused. If you need high focus. Engage in effective touch, like gentle contact with trusted individuals. Cognitive self-care stimulates the brain executive networks, maintaining cognitive health and flexibility. Learn something new, like language, hobby, or skill. I'm trying. Do puzzles or read regularly. So when it comes to puzzle, okay. So how the brain learns. So that's what I learned. So how the brain learn. When you do something over and over, that is not learning. That is repetition. That is recalling. Already the brain built the pattern, stored it. That is in episodic or implicit or explicit memory, whatever it is. So it is the emotional memory and things like that. So learning occur when you introduce new context, new content, new experience. So that is when learning happens. And that what increases the synaptic connections and neuroplasticity. So what I learned, it is not doing the same thing. That is routine. What I learned as well in building a habit means that is like the self-discipline. I do this thing when needed, not repetition. Repetition. So we have to understand the differentiation between routine, between habit, between learning, between recalling, and repetition. So we have to understand that how the brain works in all of that. Learning, it is new context, new is a example like if you hear about disrupted learning. Disrupted learning is more into the engineering, into the building, remodeling, and reshaping and creating. The mostly disruptive learning. If we adopted disruptive learning in early childhood, you create something out of nothing, and you have the same component, but every person is building something different, and that is collecting experiences, recalling the prior knowledge, the prior learning, and shaping it into a new framework or a new introduction or a new presentation. That is what e-learning is about. But whatever other than this, you read the same thing every single day and you can say it by your own. That is recalling, memorization, and repetition, not learning. Okay, so when learning is happen, when you introduce, I say that is by creating strong synaptic connection, increasing the neuroplasticity, and engaging multiple different regions in the brain. So it's not only the specific region is working. No, there is integration in multiple regions in the brain. So that is the interconnectivity of the neuroplasticity. So the expansion of the abilities of the individual that they can put new knowledge into their brain. So, and that for the new knowledge will reshape or reframe their understanding about a phenomenon, about a behavior, about something that previously, without building a new knowledge, they will be stuck, or they are going to be at the same place where they are at last year, for example. So that is, I say, building new knowledge. That is when building new knowledge. That is when learning occur. Confusing, yeah. Yes, confusing. But anyway, that is how it is. So see, it's interesting, fascinating how to differentiate between things that we say at face value without either asking what does it mean really mean, and how can it looks like or be like in real life. So doing the puzzle, the brain already, you have, this is the suprachiasmatic, Nicola. So here, it grasp, it is your nano camera. It's taking, it's like flashing everything a second, taking the image of everything around you, and already this image already printed, okay, unless something changes. So when I built a puzzle, I struggled. That is when learning happened. I struggle, I engage multiple regions, and I'm infusing action potential. All of this happening in the brain at the same time, and at the same time I'm problem solving prefrontal cortex. So that is higher cognitive function. So planning everything of that of one puzzle. But once you do the puzzle, and here your visual cortex is gonna pick up the image, and then next time 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look at any child is learning. Look at their level of frustration when they fail the first time to, for example, to build a puzzle. What type of puzzle? How many pieces? It doesn't matter. They all start with 20 pieces and then increase it to 50, something like that. 20 and then 50. So that is when the complexity is built up, and the more you build the complexity, you are reshaping neuro circuits, and connecting higher cognitive from neurocortex to the prefrontal cortex, strengthening and infusion of the good neurotransmitters, not here. That when it comes to position, that's not okay. That's another thing. So already your brain and your visual cortex took a picture of that, and it is encoded. And this is during the sleep. This is the memory consolidation and encoding it here. This will go to the longer term memory. This goes here. This goes here. What is important is going to be staying. What is not important is going to be like, see how many things you do through the day, through your life. So do you remember everything you're saying? No. Through sleep, there's the memory consolidation occurs, and the repair, and the vacuum occurs. So there is clean housekeeping. Housekeeping occur during the sleep. So imagine, so this puzzle, when it is introduced the next time, you're gonna see it much easier in doing it till get bored. So no, I can do it. Or you teach it to somebody doesn't know it, and this is another reframing of the experience, and this is another opportunity that you have, how you transfer the knowledge to others. Of course, breaking down knowledge to others where at their level, this is another method of learning. So they say, if you would like to learn something, if you'd like that, teach it. So that is true, because it gives you, it's not as I read it the first time, not as I understood the first time, or as I applied it or things. The whole person, it's a whole different experience. They have their own prior knowledge, they have their own differentiational experiences. So my method of teaching, maybe they didn't get it one time. This is a learning opportunity. I learned it from it, so I change my style, I change my approach, I change that and that. That is neuroplasticity, and that is learning happening, that engaging in different regions of the brain. If you would like to have the healthy habits to empower the regulation of the central nervous system. And this is how to happen when through learning experiences. That is why you see the activation of the emotional connection, the social communication. So that is all building up because the sense of safety and trust is being taken place. But however, as I said, everything it can be good and bad, but we have to understand how to build the self-awareness of the healthy patterns of learning shaping behavior. How to do that? That's a whole environment, a whole life, a whole environment, a whole life. A whole environment. You reshape, yeah. Before 1, 2, 3 and ABC, teach you self-awareness, how to be safe. Yeah. So here, as I say, so that's for the puzzle. So if you are doing puzzles, please pick something else, not the one you did last year or you used to do, or teach it to somebody. If it is 1,000 piece, teach it to somebody. Let us see, social self-care support recognition circuits, fusiform face area, uh, and oxytocin release for bonding and safety. Spend the time with emotionally safe people, engage in meaningful conversation, join supportive communities of interest groups, set healthy boundaries in draining relationships. Many once understand something. For the aggressor, for the grooming, they mimic the emotions. How we know? We don't know. Experience will show. They become what the target need. So they play on the mental, psychological, emotional, physical, financial, or whatever need. They're gonna play on it. Okay, so they wanna become what the target needs, and that is the vulnerability makes like availability for the exploitation to take place. So that is another level of awareness. They either overly generous, charismatic, highly extrovert, socially the butterfly of the group. Uh, they are gonna exploit or take advantage of what the person in, either they are in crisis, or they are coming out of crisis, or they are challenged, or they are facing obstacles in their lives. So they are going to become that they look at the savior. However, once they got control, because that the target dropped their guard, no boundaries, and everything is possible, then the control happened, then the mask fall off. So when the mask fall off, it is ugly. It is not. It is ugly. It is ugly. It breaks more, and that is when the regulation of the central nervous system, and they say the more vulnerable the person, the hard the shock is. The victim is not coming back, so they are completely changed, different person. Either they harm themselves, or they harm others, or um, so that the victim become aggressor as well, or they become the trauma bonding, and they lose their self-identity. They don't know themselves anymore, and they become helpless, powerless. They are, and they started the process of over control and dominance, and the diminishing and the belittling and gaslighting of the person. They wipe their identity, and that is ugly. It's not an easy task, or an easy experience for any like any female, a child, adolescents, or young adult, or even a grown up. They, because that is their attachment. They no boundaries. They dropped their guard. They allowed what is not, what shouldn't be allowed. And the victim is the one to be blamed, and they are the aggressor, or they are the one who caused it. So be aware of that. Be aware of that. As much as you are, we are not in isolation. We are social beings. We have to keep the dignity and respect of you are in God's image, and you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And God wipe out all things, just because He loves you, and because He made you the way they are. But whatever things that we are going through, it's I say it's a learning experience, an opportunity to understand how far you can go, even through the odds say no. So, spiritual or meaning-oriented self-care grounds identity and support a sense of coherence and purpose. Practice gratitude or meditation, connect with nature, or engage in rituals. Reflect on values, or journal about meaning. Participating in community or service work. So. Uh, So use self-care is needed, and identify it through the red flags. So some of the red flags, for example, for the emotional overload and burnout, irritability, or mood swings. So the action is emotional check-in, quiet space, mindful breathing, fatigue despite rest, nutritional support, stress reduction, movement, sensory overwhelm, low stimulus environment, grounding through touch. Social withdrawal, reach out to safe friends, short positive interactions, racing thoughts, journaling, meditation, and cognitive appraisal. Uh, as I stated that no nothing called like one size fits all. Identify what works for you and what does not work. What can be a possibility within the time frame, the state you are in, and everything. Be an evaluator of your state. Nobody else knows better than you. So experiment with different types of self-care, reflect regularly what is effective, what works and what does not work. This is self-reflection. That is the frontal cortex activation. Adjust based on current stressors, needs, and energy levels. Nothing is perfect. Sometimes you are fully charged. Sometimes you are not fully charged. Sometimes you are willing to do. Sometimes you are not. So adhere to what your body is saying. At the same time, don't ignore the red flags. Don't ignore the red flags. Listen to your body. Listen to your body, because your body is collecting cues every single second, and from your prior experiences and prior knowledge and the state where you are. So that is when the response occur. So listen to your body. Self-care is not a luxury, but it's a neurobiological necessity. It enhances brain functions that regulate emotions, cognition, and behavior by integrating body awareness, emotional regulation, and cognitive reflection. Self-care builds resilience, reduces vulnerability to mental health disorders, and helps individuals respond adaptively to life challenges. Self care is a deliberate practice of taking actions to preserve or improve your mental, emotional, physical, and social well being. In the context of behavioral neuroscience, self care is not just about relaxation or indulgence. It is about supporting the brain and body systems that regulates stress, emotion, and behavior. When done intentionally, self-care strengthens neural circuits involved in emotional regulations, regulation, resilience, and executive function. So self-care support your prefrontal cortex is strengthened by effective practicing, reflective practicing, amygdala calmed by relaxation, insula and introspective work is activated through the body awareness, and the reward system dopaminergic circuits supported the enjoyable and meaningful activities. So here, for example, what you need to put in place as well is what resources you need to allow you carry on that for self-care, self-awareness, understand the role of the second brain of your body, that is the largest organ in your body, is your skin and its role in the perceptual experiences. Is it like healthy or destructive, and how can you adopt this self-awareness and self-care by what resources you need, what type of knowledge you would like to invite into your mind to digest, what type of trainings that you would like to join or to explore, so you can you can understand what type of interventions that do you need at this level, what activities you would like to engage in, what materials that could be collected and enhance the process of self-reflections, what goals that you are setting, short-term goals or long-term goals, what skills that will enhance your well-being, all of this, what externally influence on your behavior and perceptual experiences, what all of that you have to, the relevancy of the experience, the accessibility, the level of engagement, how all this input that can bring some perspectives and some reliable indicators or cues that you can follow, and you adapt, uh, self-respect, self-awareness, self-care, and you are engaged in behavior aligns with your lived experience and realities. So you are not, as many say, that the world is functioning on one side and your mind or your brain functioning on the other side. This disconnection, your reality or your perceived reality is based on the perceptual experiences or your lived experience. So it is unique for you. It is unique for you. Generalization is a false hypothesis. It's only experimentation that in the lab test that we say, how can we replicate this experience so we get the same outcome, how this experience can be replicated. But however, when it comes to the human elements, everything changes, from culture, from age, from gender, from race, from ethnicity, from language, for level education, for the medical history, for the family history, for the intergenerational trauma, for the environmental tapestry, for all of this. And when it comes to the human element, you have to stop, because every human has their own collection of scrapbooks, or whatever, scrapbook or albums, that only unique for them, that only can be applied to them. Therefore, they are responsive to specific intervention. They are not responsive to the other. They are metabolite specific medication. They are not metabolite others medication. So your perception, forming all this, and as you say that within aggression and integumentary system and perception, you see how it impact your emotional regulation, your social connections, your attachment, your trust, your safety. You see how all of this interrelates. So it is unique for you. So how to identify your red flags, and don't ignore your red flags. How your boundaries and limits and your decrease or increase of the input that you would like into your life, how this reflect self-respect, self-awareness, and self-care. It is not judgmental, because many, as we stated, it is from culturally, the labels are a lot. The labels are a lot. The judgment, I don't know what to say. We are at age that even with education and level of technology is still, because it serve a function. It serve a function. When you see that life doesn't change the way you are expecting, don't allow this to put the internal conflict and the projection of the game of the shift of fear and guilt to change Your self-awareness and your connection with the reality. Don't let this shake you. You have to question, you have to reflect how this impact you, how this impact you within this framework of experience, how I was before it happened and how I am after it happened and everybody left the scene. So you have to understand this, and this is your skin is collecting your intelligence, so some input, and telling you something you have to pay attention to. It's exciting. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. So today I added another piece to the matrix of aggression. It is not usual. It is not like what you see it in every book, like from anatomy and physiology and my biology classes and neuroscience classes. All of that are pieces, 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 pieces. But you have to take the cues. You have to take the cues, and you have to connect them together. From the psychology, this is separated, and here is separated, and here is separated, and I say, okay, we we are a whole tapestry. We are a whole um, unique complex systems. So we have to integrate different disciplines. We have to be open to see that the human condition from an integrative, from multidisciplinary approach, it is not one discipline and two disciplines. It is not like everyone is seeing that how these approaches can come together and form a whole or a holistic approach for the whole person for restoring lives, if you want to restore lives. So this is my piece for tonight, and today still is October 3rd. I couldn't imagine the year is going fast, so fast, so fast. So I hope I can present more of that. So that is how um, I got into my education, and that is my prayer to work in within a multidisciplinary team. We understand the whole person approach. We come from intervention that we are understanding the molecular mechanism, the metabolic dysfunction, to understand how this can be changed by the perceptual experience. That is a huge shift, and through the lived experience, that is when the shift happen in the biological systems and vice versa. So from the rupture can be the repair. How the rapture, for how we understand it, our understanding of the rapture can be the source of repair. So that is what I would like to leave with you tonight, and I hope you see the video, um, the skin to skin touch, that is the mother and the infants, and that is how it regulates the autonomic nervous system, and it can and has its impact on the central nervous system and the connector between the mind and the body, between the establishment of the bonding and trust, the sense of trust. And this is how it starts, and this is how it goes, how to restore the sense of trust. I hope you can have something tonight, and I wish you well. Peace.